You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This week we are talking about the American disaster horror film Crawl, which is directed by Alexandre Aja and released July 12th, 2019.
Ooh, yes. I was looking forward to this one right away. It has creatures, It has a hurricane. I mean, those are the elements, you know, disaster and monsters coming together. I'm usually down for those at any time.
Oh yeah, it's such a good movie, and like it's like we're not even waiting till we get to rankings and stuff later to like. So what did you really think? No, but like, it's such a weird movie in the fact that I didn't expect it to be this good, and then even knowing it was this good, and then because I saw it back in 2019 when it first came out.
Yes,
and it was one of those, like, I was just like, I have nothing else better to do. Popcorn flick, turn my brain off, and just, it's going to be some stupid alligator movie, whatever, and just see what happens. And not realizing by the end of it, I'd be like, holy shit, that was a lot of fun. Like, I really enjoyed that. And then now, even like 2 years later, going to watch it again for this podcast, and I was like, oh yeah, Crawl. Like, I enjoyed it, but like, I was like, yeah, I'll watch it again. It was just one of those, like, I'd already forgotten how much fun I had watching it that first time. And then, like, everything's flooding back as I'm watching it again. Like, oh, yeah, no, this one's really good. Like, it's surprisingly fun.
I know, I forgot that, too. When I was watching it again, I'm like, oh, yes, this takes me to a place where it's serious, but it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot going on in front of the camera, but also little snippets of information that we learned from conversations that Haley had with her dad, which kind of just connected you to the two of them and their plight in the cellar of their house in the middle of a hurricane while being attacked by alligators.
Yeah.
Doesn't make me want to move to Florida right now.
No. There's a lot of reasons I don't want to be in Florida right now, or most times.
Yes. I'm not really, I'm not down. I have friends that live there and they love it, and I want to go visit, but it's not a place I'd want to live. Yeah. It's kind of too hot for me. I'm not really someone who enjoys the hot weather, so.
Yeah. I enjoy Florida. I like it. I'm not a beach person, but the times I've gone to Panama City Beach or to Destin or just that's really all of my like experiences with Florida is I haven't done like Orlando or Tampa or anything. I've done more of the, beach, Gulf of Mexico kind of area. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I did spend like a week and a half, 2 weeks in Key West. And as much as I am not a beach person, that is one of my favorite trips I've ever taken because the city, like the little like island area and like the nightlife and is just incredible. I had a blast in Key West.
That sounds like a lot of fun. You're going to have to tell me about that some other time.
Yeah.
Because right now, we got to dig into this movie.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to go ahead and do some of our wonderful behind-the-scenes information that we gathered about Crawl. It was set in Gainesville, Florida. However, it was filmed in Belgrade, Serbia, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
It's the second creature feature for Alexandre Aja. He also directed 2010's Piranha 3D, which I also saw.
I have not seen that one.
I feel like we're going to have to cover it at some point.
We might have to. Just are. From what I understand about it, it's real campy. But that's probably a good thing.
It's extremely campy. It's the type of movie that doesn't take itself too seriously, so you can still have a lot of fun with it. There are a couple of cameos, and there's also just some absolute silliness that goes along with it.
Nice.
So it's one that we may have to cover at some point.
I think so. Put it on the list.
So Alexandre Aja also directed the remake of Wes Craven's The Hills Have Eyes, which was really well done. He did a good job with it. And I remember him for a movie called High Tension, which came out in 2003. It's a really good thriller. It does have subtitles because it is a French film, but it was very, very well done. So I enjoyed it a lot.
Nice.
The cinematographer, Maxime Alexander, recently worked on The Haunting of Bly Manor, which, Peg, you know something about The Haunting of Bly Manor.
A little something about that. That's right. Yeah, me and Rima covered the entire series, whatever. It's The Haunting. We covered Bly Manor over on Strange Indeed, and that was a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit of trivia that came up, and I wanted to include it because you and Rima had covered it. So I thought it was cool to kind of include it in here.
Yeah.
The movie itself was inspired by a true alligator event during Hurricane Florence, which I did not get to dig deeper into that, but it's something I definitely want to find out what happened.
Yeah, I tried digging into it a little bit, and from what I understand, like, it's very loosely inspired as far as like
as most things are.
Yeah, because I have this in my notes as far as like it's not because it's one of those things that like it's mainly the event is that like a hurricane happened and a guy like went into his house after while it was fully flooded and there's like a giant alligator in his kitchen. Okay. Like that's about it. Like because they're not really like known to be that aggressive and like territorial. It's like it's over dramatized a lot for this movie. But it is something because while I was doing a little digging, so I'm jumping ahead into some of like random notes that I had for later. But why not? Because it fits. It's one of those things that it is it is a concern. Like after hurricanes and all like the flooding and stuff, is it's very, very likely and very normal for alligators to be all up in neighborhoods and houses and places they usually shouldn't be because it's all flooded. So
yeah, they're not sure where they're even going. I mean, it's water to them. They're not sure, and they're probably hungry and looking for food.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. So the budget for this movie was $13.5 million, and it grossed $91.5 million at the box office. And it clocked in at about 87 minutes. Pake, why don't you give us one of your fabulous synopses?
All right. They say one of mine. It's more of some random IMDb user, and it's their wonderful synopses that I just plagiarize. But, if you want to give me credit for it, I'll take it. The one that I pulled, it says, a young woman, while attempting to save her father during a Category 5 hurricane, finds herself trapped in a flooding house and must fight for her life against alligators. Sweet and to the point.
Yes. Yes. And she does fight. Oh, goodness. We might as well just jump in, because I have some initial thoughts that I have to share. I feel like this movie is a survival story. It's about surviving the hurricane, but it's also like this reconnection of a father and daughter.
Yeah.
And out of all the podcasts that we've done so far, she is one of the most badass characters I have seen. She just did what she had to do. There was no second thought. She just did it. Mm. She got it done, and I loved that about her. And I do think that her father would have died without her there.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if he had been somehow able to revive himself and try to crawl out, I don't think he would have survived without her. She was willing him to life at times. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that they had this relationship that throughout the movie, you see them starting to reconnect after going through a breakup of a family, which is just a really sad thing to think about, but I know that a lot of people can relate to it.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right. So as we kind of start breaking down the movie, our typical way of doing, character, breakdowns and kind of thinking about it like that, there's not a lot of character. There's Haley, there's Dave, and there's some other random people. They just kind of show up in the alligators themselves. That's about it. Yes. And the whole movie, is them kind of fighting and surviving together. So I think a lot of our notes for Haley or for Dave could be swapped back and forth easily because there's a lot of stuff that's just the story is them together. But
it's not separate categories. It's like it's not separate characters. They're so intertwined. So if we do hop back and forth between the two, I feel like it's just a natural.
I think it's just going to happen. Yeah,
it's just going to happen.
We'll start with kind of where my notes have just Haley, under her. Mm-hmm. And we'll start there and then just see where the conversation takes us. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. And I have a lot of just random notes. I don't know. I was in, not a mood, but just a mindset while watching the movie that I was just like, it was making me think of all kinds of random stuff. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to jot that down just bleh, from my brain. And so my first note I have on here is at the very beginning of the movie, we see her in a swimming competition, or really it's more just a practice. But, you know, she's practicing, you know, but it is like who's going to make the team or the people who are making the best times for this. And that's her goal. She was like, I'm going to lose my scholarship if I don't make the road team. And like, so she's doing her best. But I did notice it was like this little thing because everybody else is just like in their swimsuits. And then you see her looking like Rocky. Like she's got her jacket on with the hood up and she's bouncing back and forth and she's just all psyched and in the zone. And I was like, so she's wearing a jacket all the way up to the point that it's time to dive in. And I was like, I knew what was going on. But I was like, I wonder if people question that kind of stuff because I don't know our listeners. There's probably a lot more sports-minded people than not. But it is something that I just like had to jot down because like it's very common in sports where there's a long period of time that you're waiting around before you quote unquote perform or whatever. Because I'm a big baseball fan and I'm very used to seeing a lot of baseball pitchers wearing full like sweats and jackets and hoodies and stuff in the dugout while they're waiting. And it's literally just so you can keep your body warmed up to where your muscles aren't getting like tighter and tense from like getting cold or like sitting. You keep yourself kind of sweating, keep yourself hot and warm so that your muscles don't tighten before you're able to do these like performances, these moves like you're pitching or swimming and stuff that's going to stretch your muscles a lot. You want to keep them loose. That's all that is. But I had to make a note about it because I was like, that's where my brain was at.
I also followed baseball for a really long time. Yep. And I do remember, especially pitchers, being in the dugout with a hoodie on, sometimes just half the jacket sleeve up their pitching arm, you know, trying to keep it warm.
Yeah.
So I definitely can relate to that, to seeing that anyway.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was just a random note that I had, but I was like, there, that's what was in my brain. But yeah, no, it's cool that they set her up as a character that she is a competitive swimmer because it sets up a lot of things for the movie later on. And so I thought that was cool. And of course, just a little tongue-in-cheek thing. Of course, she's swimming for the Florida Gators.
Yes. Yes. I found that little detail was... Yeah, they definitely took a lot. They connected to the name there for sure. Gators in big letters on their swim caps. Yeah.
A lot of little like foreshadowing things that were just like fun for them, and I think that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then like the character herself, you know, talking about like there's a lot of like, I guess family drama is a way you could say it. It's more than just drama. I mean, yeah, like as we find out throughout the movie and stuff, that like her parents have split after her and her sister had become adults and moved on and started their own personal lives. And, but it has affected the family pretty deeply. You know, her and her dad were super close, but then, you know, around that time after she grew up and moved out and her parents were divorcing and all this thing, like it really kind of drove a wedge between her and her dad as close as they were. And for different reasons that we find out from them having conversations later.
Yeah.
They had their own personal view on it.
It was very deep.
Yeah.
The discussion that they had at that point to talk about the breakup.
Yeah.
Because it actually came down to the house. Because Dave, the dad, did not sell the house. Not because the deal didn't fall through, but because he couldn't bear to sell it because it was the last place, it was their home. It was the last place where they were a family.
Yeah.
And I remember her saying to him, no, Dad, you and me were a family.
Mm-hmm.
And you can relate to, I mean, different shots in the movie, they showed the customary door casing where you measure your child's height as they grow.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see that and you just connect with him knowing that he wanted to hold on to a piece of a happier time for his family. And he seems to have come to, you know, the realization that his wife wasn't happy. And he wanted her to be happy, so he let her go. Yeah. He seems more comfortable with it than the girls, I think, are.
Yeah, and that was... So we'll jump to that conversation that her and her dad have, that Haley and Dave kind of have in the basement or the crawl space together. And that conversation where they're talking about the divorce and everything. And Haley's been under this assumption that it was like, well, you and mom, separated and you were distant from each other because you were always spending all of your time with me as my swim coach, and we were on the road and going to different things. And so it was because you put all this time and effort and energy into me that you didn't spend time with mom. And so that's why y'all weren't together anymore. And he was like, no, you can't blame yourself for that. It was like, that's what a parent does. And parents understand that. It was like, no, that whole time we were still together just because of you girls. Like that was the whole, it was just because of it was like they had kind of fallen out long before that, but they waited until the girls were grown up and out on their own before they divorced, because like they were holding on to those things way before the girls even picked up on it. And he was like, no, it was like, I was with you, but that's not the reason. It was, we were still together during all of that for the sake of Haley and Beth, for the two of them. And so
exactly. And families, I think a lot of families can relate to that. I know some couples that have pushed through their differences until their kids were out of the house. And then they separate and go on to have different lives after that.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a choice. Some families, I think that's what they choose is we have children. We need to focus on them right now. This can't be about what we want. So we're going to focus on raising the kids. And then once they're grown, we'll each do what makes us happy.
Yeah. There's a reason that the whole like stay together for the kids is such a cliche, is because it is something that happens a lot.
Yeah. And in some cases, it doesn't work out very well. Like the misery, I guess, that the couple is in, or the misery that they cause each other is not
then that rubs off on the kids too. So you have to find different things work for different people. I'm not married. I'm not going to go into any kind of marriage or parental advice. That's but from my limited understanding of it, it's like you kind of have to gauge where you are as a couple and where your life is whether you can handle doing something like that or not.
Exactly. Yeah. It's interesting with the pandemic going on right now. I know I have friends in particular that are co-parenting through the pandemic despite being divorced.
Yeah.
They're cohabitating and they're making it work for the sake of the kids. And I commend them for that because it can't be an easy thing to do. But it's the right thing they feel for their kids. And I think only a couple can determine that.
Yeah.
Like no one, just because this is what this imaginary couple did, that doesn't mean that that's something that everyone should do. Yeah, you really have to, like you said, Pake, you have to gauge what's best for you in that case. And I feel like that conversation that Haley and Dave had, it was really an opportunity for her to realize that she may have been blaming herself, but that wasn't the right thing to do. Like it wasn't her fault. And I think that may be why she wasn't going to visit as often. And given that she and her father were so close, I mean, you get the flashbacks of them at the pool and he's, saying, "What are you?" And she's saying, "Apex predator."
Yeah.
That was their little discussion that they had before races and after races. And I feel like they just needed to come together. I mean, this was a terrible event to start your reuniting this piece of the family. But I think that if you look at the start and look where they ended, they really did come together really well and work together to get out of the situation.
Definitely. Like you said, it's not the best way to have to kind of reunite and stuff, but it worked. Because it was, there's some interesting stuff in that conversation. Another one that I just wanted to mention is, she was just like, even after her parents divorced and stuff, it's like, but you stopped coming to the events. You stopped coming to my races. You stopped coming to support me. And he goes, well, I thought you were mad at me. And she goes, I am. And they leave it at that. But you can like, continue that statement being like, but I still wanted you there to support me. Whether I'm mad at you or not, the fact that you're there is still important to me.
Yes. Especially because the family had gone through that adjustment. And it sounds like the mom had gone off to live in Paris. So she really wasn't around very much.
Yeah.
I feel like Haley had that connection with her dad, and she expected that no matter what, he would come and support her, especially because that was an activity that they had done her whole life together.
Yeah.
And to not have have him in the stands was just such, I think maybe she felt that was contributing to her not doing as well, because she needed him there. Like, it gave her an extra spark, but she didn't ask him to come.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't even talk about it.
Communication is key on all sides.
It is.
But it's easier said than done for a lot of people. So, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think we learned, too, early on that Haley's sister Beth is more like her mother, and Haley is more like her dad.
Yeah, well,
and I think this...
I was going to say, yeah, because we find out, Beth lives in Boston. The whole opposite, like, end of the country, like, all the way up at the top, in the north, as far north as she could get away from Florida, almost. And so, and so, Haley even kind of jabs at her with that. It's just like, oh, yeah, you're a lot like mom. You care from a distance. You don't have to be here and you don't have to deal with it, but you got as far away as you can. But then you make sure that you still care, but it's all in words and you're not showing anything.
Yeah, yeah. So Haley was the one left, kind of monitoring her father.
Yeah,
but still, none of them knew that he didn't sell the house. I mean, he admitted to her. At first he says, well, the deal fell through. And then he finally, tells the truth and said, no, he just couldn't sell it.
Yeah.
And you get that. I mean, when you have a place, they always say that home is where the heart is. But I think sometimes the memories that you build in a certain place will tie you to that place.
Yeah, so home is where the heart is, but the heart has been instilled into that home. Like...
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that a house is a house, but you make a house a home by building those memories from living there. And I didn't realize it as much until I bought my own home and started to build, like, my own traditions and my own life in my house. Yeah. And it's just, this is home. It's not where I grew up. It's not those community things. It's really, this is my home. Because, it's mine, and I feel that way. It took me a long time to get to that point. Yeah. So.
Which, to nitpick on the movie a little bit, it's a surprise that he could even get anybody to try to buy that home. The fact that he had a house that was lakefront, like, connected to a lake in Florida, with a basement where all the wiring and pipes and everything are in that basement that's going to flood every time it rains.
Yes. And a beautiful sign out front that said, beware of alligators. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'd want to chance it. There's too many cons on that list of pros and cons.
I mean, there's a drainage pipe from the lake that goes directly into the basement. Like...
Yeah, and it wasn't in very good shape, was it?
No.
Nope. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Ugh.
Yeah, which, that basement, I mean, I guess we can talk about that in, connection to the characters and the stuff that they go through there. They set up a lot of, it's your classic monster movie, creature, feature kind of thing, where you got to set up these little things to happen that are problems further down the road. Like, of course, the big gator, when it first drops in and takes out the whole stairs, and that becomes a whole thing. Ugh. Causes her to drop her phone, and then that's why she has to go back for it, which, man, I was, like, yelling at her watching that, because I was like, main mistake, Haley. I was like, if this person watching this movie can give you the fictional character that you'll, notes that you'll never hear or know. I said, instead of grabbing the phone and immediately going back to a safe spot where you were, you're just going to sit there in the open and try to, call 911 and sit there and have a full conversation just out in the open and turn your attention away from the alligator, which turns out to be alligators they didn't even know. Like,
oh my God.
I was like,
so many.
I would have grabbed the phone and ran back to where I was first, then be like, okay, now let's call somebody. But just sitting out there in the open, like, oh, okay, now I got the phone. Everything's fine now.
No, it isn't. It definitely is not.
But it was a cool reveal then with that lightning flash, and then the one is like right there behind her. about like lunging at her.
Ugh.
Which then she drops the phone again and it gets smashed. I was like, okay, now goodbye phone.
Yep. I feel like there were a lot of those, like, not huge jump scares, but like jarring moments that, you know, everything's fine, then boom, you're just like, what?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, most of them weren't too bad, except for
moments.
One that got me that I legitimately, even though I'd seen this before, it'd been so long I didn't remember. The one that I actually like jumped to where I had to go, damn it. Like out loud, it's just like, seriously? What? And it wasn't even an alligator. It was like the first one where the tree limb comes through the window, and I jumped at that. And I was like, seriously, a fucking tree? That's what's going to get me?
Yeah.
But it's a movie about killer alligators, and I just got a major jump scare from a fucking tree. Cool.
That is a riot. Yep. I'm not going to let you forget that either. Going forward. Yep. Pig was scared of a tree.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely going to be something I bring up from time to time.
Yep. It's like, and then that crazy monster jumped in. It's like, but was it as scary as the tree?
Yeah. Yeah. Remember the tree and Crawl? Yeah. In talking about Haley being a badass, I did a little bit of digging into the actress's, you know, efforts in the movie, like what she thought of different things. And Kaya Scodelario, who I've seen in a bunch of different things, she actually got her start, I think, on a British TV show called Skins. And then she was in The Maze Runner and a bunch of other films. She's really, really quite talented. She said this was the most physically demanding of her career. They shot 16 to 18-hour days, all day, every day. And she lost about 12 pounds while they were shooting the movie. But she gained a lot of muscle, too.
Yeah.
So there was that trade-off. She broke a finger. She got lots of cuts. She was bruised and bloodied. And one thing she did try to do was she fought to have her character wear flip-flops because she said as a swimmer, she'd likely be barefoot and would kick them off when she was crawling around. Mm-hmm. She really wanted her character to be barefoot. And it makes sense if you think about it.
Yeah, she did a phenomenal job. And this is,
She did.
This is, I think, the first time I've seen her. I haven't watched any of the other stuff. I am meaning to have like a random like marathon of like all those like YA action kind of series. Like it just kind of hit me because I was like, I just need to take some time to binge through and watch. I did watch all of the Hunger Games, but like Maze Runner and like the Insurgent, Divergent, whatever order those are in. Like those kind of movies, I was like, they can be fun. It's just something I usually never dive into. But like I was at work and like one of those Insurgent or something was playing during the day. And I was like, just kept like glancing at it while doing other stuff and be like, my God, the cast in this movie is incredible. Why have I not watched this?
Because there are other movies that capture your attention that you want to watch more, and there's only a certain amount of time in a day to be able to watch movies. So you have to be choosy.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, cool. Yeah, and as badass as she was, I noticed that like, she got attacked quite a few times, which I can take as another nitpick to be like, yeah, as many times as she got bit and grabbed and dragged, she should be way more maimed than she was. But, suspension of disbelief, let it go, because you got to set her up to be such a badass who can, grab a flare from underwater while being death rolled by an alligator.
Oh my God. I think that was like the third alligator she killed. I think she killed 3 total. One with a gun, one by stabbing it in the eye, and then the last one with the flare.
Well, she didn't kill the one that she stabbed in the eye.
She didn't? I thought that she did kill.
Because that was like the first one that unless you're talking like as 2 separate eye stabbing situations.
No,
she stabbed the one in the eye with the flare. That one, when she grabbed the flare, she jabbed it into its eye. But that's all I remember is like those 2.
Well, she killed a few of them.
Yeah.
For sure.
The first one she stabbed in the eye with a screwdriver, it just kind of walked off. Because I named that one Popeye.
Popeye.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh goodness.
Yeah, she went through a lot. And then she's dealing with all these flooding and alligators and cuts and scrapes and bites, and maybe the worst of all of it was just getting a bunch of spiders dumped on her face.
Oh my gosh.
Just in my notes, I just have, ew, fucking spiders.
Ew.
No.
She did not enjoy that. She kind of freaked out with that. I mean, here she is. She's getting attacked by alligators, but she really freaked out with the spiders.
I would have too, so I feel that.
Oh my gosh. Spiders don't bother me so much.
Spiders don't bother me from a distance. Like, if I see a spider, I'm like, okay, cool. Stay over there and we're friends. We're cool. But come near me and I scream like a 6-year-old girl. So just...
my goodness! I love this. I'm learning so much.
Yeah. But if we keep our distance, you can live your little spider life. I'll check it out. I'll look at you, be like, that's a cool looking spider, but don't come any closer to me. And we got a good connection. We're good.
I've learned so much during this conversation.
I mean, like daddy long legs or something. Like, I'll let those crawl all over me. Those are cool. But I don't want to deal with like
a nest of them,
jumping spiders and wolf spiders, and just
yeah, that can be a problem. They live in basements, though. They really do.
Yeah,
I have spiders in my basement. I know. I don't worry about them. I don't think about them. As long as it's not like snakes, I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had those moments like I'm in the shower and like look and there's like a spider like on the wall or whatever, and I'd just be like, okay, I'm gonna keep an eye on you. But I'm not going to freak out. It's like, as long as you just stay over there, we're cool. We're cool.
I think when you're in a shower, you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
So you don't really want anything near you. It's kind of like, stay over there. Don't come near me. I mean it.
Yeah. But yeah, again, badass, right? You mentioned her killing the one with the gun, but then just the way that was done.
Yeah, incredible.
Where she points the gun at it and then it clamps down on her arm. And she just starts unloading, like just down its throat. I was like, damn, that is...
I'm like, when is it going to die? Because she shot it like 5 or 6 times and then it finally just drops. I'm like, oh gosh.
It's like, she shouldn't have an arm anymore, technically, but but that was cool.
And it bites off her dad's arm. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just like, okay, so the alligator bit her dad's arm off, but when she was shooting it, it didn't bite her arm off. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Was it a baby? It wasn't a baby. It was huge, so I don't understand. But it's okay. It's suspension of disbelief in that regard. Okay, I'll take it.
You got to suspend a lot of disbelief to enjoy it, but then if you do, you'll really enjoy it because it's a fun movie.
Yes. So fun. So fun.
Yes. And then so she has to swim out through that tunnel, which extended underwater scenes. That's, if you want to make me uncomfortable, that's a way to do it. I don't do deep underwater extended period of times. No, that's attention for me. I'm like, breathe, get out of the water. How do you do this?
It makes me think of heights, honestly. Like, when it's really deep underwater, it reminds me of as deep as you are underwater, and there is the sky, the air, the oxygen, trying to get from the bottom to the top. It just makes me think of heights. Like, I'm terrified of heights. So being underwater that far and so far away from where I'd be safe, it just freaks me out a little bit too much.
Yep. I'm not a fan. But yeah, but I'm kind of running linearly because a lot of my notes are just kind of in chronological order. But yeah, she gets out of the water there and she deals with that. And then I did like the little, added tension. They showed her locking that sliding door earlier in the movie. It was open. And so she closed it from the inside and locked it. And now she's having to go back through that door much later in the movie, and it's locked. And I was like,
can't open it.
That's cool. So she has to like smash through it with a chair. But I was like, okay, cool. A little attention to detail. Because as soon as she goes up to that door and she's like, and it's locked, you're like, oh yeah. Like you flash back to when she locks it earlier in the movie. And you're like, okay, yeah. Like they paid that off.
Yeah, she did lock it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
And that's cool.
I think that you figure out too how Haley gets some of her badassery. Again, I'm using that word that I think I used in a prior podcast. It's not really a word, but I'm making it one.
It is. We'll make it.
Her dad sets his own leg.
Oh God.
Like it's broken and he He sets it.
Okay, we just talked about this on The Descent. When we covered that with Jason, was like how much I can't stand looking at broken legs with bones jutting out of them and then having to set it. And it's like the next movie we watch, like after that, to record, like, and we're doing this again with a broken leg. Great, awesome.
Yes, we are. Oh my gosh, he said it, and I'm just like, yep, that's why she's ferocious. Because she is ferocious.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yep, that's why. Because he is ferocious as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then it's tough to kind of see him being so like vulnerable, whatever, when he's sitting there and the water has risen all the way to the top and he's like sucking on the floorboards for air. I mean, he is just at that last second. But she manages to pull him through. And I was like, even though I've seen this movie before and I know he makes it out at the end of the movie, I'm still so nervous and tense watching her trying to resuscitate him. I'm like, maybe he doesn't make it this time I watch it for some reason.
It changes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. A different version, Pete.
Right.
They changed the version and uploaded a new one.
Because that's how nicely done that was. And I will give the movie a lot of credit for that. It's like they put so much tension into that scene. You're like, oh, I know he survives, but I also don't know if he's going to survive while I'm watching it. Even though I know it's, yeah.
At that point, too, I noticed, like, the dog, Sugar, she was so awesome. I love this dog. And I was so worried that she was not going to make it. So many times in this movie, I'm like, no, they're going to sacrifice her, or she's going to sacrifice herself. And I don't want to see that. Oh, But she was so smart. Like, she showed Haley where her dad was right from the beginning.
Yeah.
And when Haley pulled him up through the floor, she was licking his face, like trying to help to wake him up. I'm just like, this dog is awesome. I mean, she's just so freaking smart.
So why he didn't take the dog with him when he went to the house in the first place, I don't know.
I don't know either.
Because even Haley mentioned something like, he never leaves you home alone. Like, he always takes you with him.
Yeah. And so she took Sugar, and Sugar was like, okay, come. It's like she was being the Pied Piper. Yeah. Follow me. I know where he is. Collapsed under the house in the storm cellar basement, whatever it was. Sugar saved the day a couple of times, I think.
Let's see. The next I kind of jump over the whole them swimming out, like, or her swimming to the boat and bringing it back, and then the levees breaking. I kind of skip over a lot of that just because it's like, it is what it is. Like, I do have, it's kind of under my Dave notes, but I'll throw it in. Is like, he tells her, like, oh, you can outswim them, which I was immediately like, that's the worst advice you could possibly give her, because the fastest human swimmers on the planet are not going to outswim an alligator.
No, they're not. I don't think Michael Phelps wants to go to the Everglades and press his luck against the alligators.
It's like, I mean, if you want to support her and like push her to do it, that's great, but don't lie to her. She cannot.
Yeah, no, that was crazy.
But it gets back. But of course, as soon as they get in the boat, the levee breaks and sends the boat flying right back into the house with them. Which then you get a whole new, like, as the water's rising through the house. It's cool. A lot of suspense, a lot of stuff. And it sets up a really cool kind of badass scene again of her having that smart moment of trapping the alligator in the shower.
Oh my gosh.
Which I was just like, how is that the glass in those glass doors and stuff on the shower surviving that? This alligator slamming into it and flopping. It was like, because the bedroom window just a little bit, like the next scene later, couldn't handle an alligator, but that shower, what is that glass made out of? That's like bulletproof glass shower.
Bulletproof glass. It's what you have, in the bad parts of town when you're building a store and you want to keep it safe. You just put up that bulletproof glass.
Yeah. I'll just make up my own backstory for Dave, my headcanon here for him. Yeah. He was once shot while he was taking a shower, so he promised himself that any shower he ever installed in a house ever again would be bulletproof glass.
Oh my gosh, this may have to be a thing from now on with characters. You may have to create the backstory that we don't have.
Yeah.
For random pieces of the movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because there are a lot of little nitpicks that I can make about it, but at the end of the day, like, it's fun and I'm going to enjoy it. Like, really, I guess I have one more, like, big nitpick that I might as well throw in, is also, I mean, the very ending of the movie. I was like, it's a happy ending, but not, like, believable in any way whatsoever. I was like, there's not going to be a hurricane or a helicopter flying through these hurricane winds.
No, they'd come in a boat, if anything, I
Yeah.
think.
But yeah, even the
Yeah.
boat shouldn't even be out during the hurricane.
No!
Unfortunately, what really would happen, they would wait until it was done, and then they go out and try to find survivors. But they're not going to be going out
Yes.
to try to rescue someone. The only way I can like maybe excuse it is she did grab the police walkie-talkie for a little bit, and maybe somebody picked up on her being like, we're in Coral Cove or whatever, and we're, this. But I still don't think they would have sent a helicopter out in all those winds to do that. But, just accept it and move on with it.
Yeah, I think you have to. It was, yeah. I think they were very lucky that they were rescued at the end. Otherwise, I think they would have stayed on top of that house and had to hold on because I don't think help was coming.
Yeah.
But they were very, very lucky in the end.
Definitely.
To be able to get away.
Cool. You got any other notes and stuff? More Haley-centric?
Well, there was one thing that I wanted to bring up. It was, let's see. Okay. So one thing I wanted to bring up, it was in Haley and Dave's conversation about the family breaking up. And he actually explained to her that once the girls, they kept the family together. And once the girls moved out, they were just two lonely people in a big empty house. Mm-hmm. And I thought that said a lot. Because I think sometimes when and I'm not giving marriage advice, I'm just going to say that it's really difficult when you raise a family. You put your kids before yourself, and sometimes you grow and change throughout that time. And when the kids go off to college and move out, you're not really sure who you are because you've changed. You're not the same couple that got married back, 20 years prior. Yeah. You just grow and change throughout that time. And sometimes you don't realize how much until you are faced with that silence. Like you're all alone and it's like, oh, and who is the person next to me? Because they've changed too. So I think I've read a couple of articles about this. And that's why they say it's always important that when you're in a relationship, you should take time for yourself and take time for, being together, even if you do have kids, because the kids are not going to be there forever.
Yeah, because you would get so used to it being like, oh, this is the mother or father of my children. And then when the kids are gone for the time, you're like, okay, well, they're not that anymore on a daily basis. So now who are they? They're just like my spouse now. And what does that mean? Yeah, I can see that.
And reconnecting, like how to reconnect. And so some couples break up, and some actually thrive in that because they reconnect with each other. So I think, we've talked about it a few times tonight. Communication is such a big part of anything. And so there were just points in this movie like that just really I connected with, because I've had friends that have gone through similar experiences where they wake up after their kids are gone and it's like, okay, I don't know who I'm married to. Yeah. Because we're not the same people we were, and we changed without realizing it. Mm-hmm. So I think, there were just a lot of little things in this movie that I connected with. Cool. So
awesome. Well, I say we talked a lot about Haley and her badassery, but as you mentioned, it's, something that she definitely got something that she definitely got from her father. And, they are very much alike. And so it is great to see the character of Dave in here. And so, I've got some more notes that are also more just Dave centric. The first one's not really a note about him, but it was just a little trivia thing, because I watched this on Amazon Prime. And they have the little X-ray, trivia, general, like knowledge and stuff, things that pop up on your phone because I have Chromecast, so I cast it to my TV. But then on my phone, if I look at it, there's like all these little trivia things that pop up during the movie, which is cool. And so I screen capped one and had to save it on here because I just thought it was a really interesting little trivia tidbit. It says early in the film, Dave's truck license plate says Matt 725. Which is seen out of the garage door during the hurricane. Matthew 7:25 in the Bible reads, The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. Which is really cool.
Wow! That is so neat.
Yeah.
That is very neat. That
Like
connects
that's
with
a
that.
nice, yeah, that's a really cool little connection that they did there.
Yeah, definitely. Now I want to dig into that more. I feel like I want to go dig in and find out why did they do that and how did that happen. And
yeah,
sometimes when we record this podcast, I end up with more questions than I had even before I
yeah, it kind of like
at all.
it's this little Easter egg that, you know, nobody's gonna just like see that license plate and think about that on their own, but like it kind of foreshadows the whole movie. Like, yeah, like they're going to go through all of this stuff, but them as a family, the home that they are, but then also the house literally still standing at the end. I mean, it's full of water and things have been destroyed, but it's still there on its foundation. Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. That is great. Did you have any other notes?
Yeah. You mentioned that, you know, that he probably wouldn't have survived without her. And that's the thing is, you know, because like the whole time I was remembering, like, because I was like, I know he's down there from when I first watched it, but I had forgotten that he was like unresponsive and unconscious. So she's like yelling, "Dad, Dad!" I was like, why is he not going to just let her know where you are? But then I was like, oh yeah, like he's completely unresponsive when she first finds him. Like he's breathing, but it's unresponsive. So I was just like, well, he was attacked and stuff. It's like he must have like passed out from like pain or shock or both.
Yeah, I think both. I mean, the shock of seeing an alligator right in front of you. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. In your house. It's supposed to be your safe space.
Yeah. But I didn't notice when he finally does wake up, when she wakes him up, it's a little thing, but I was like, man, that is a deep cut on her. Is the first thing he says is Beth? Like, yeah, it's the daughter who has lived in Boston for the past however many years, who's nowhere near you. Like, not the daughter that you spent like everything with as when she was a kid, who lives like less than 2 hours away or whatever. So I was all like, "Ow, that hurts a little bit." He would wake up. Beth is like, "I'll give it to, you know, unconscious brain a little bit to him, but why is he going there?" And they don't really talk about like the relationship between him and Beth. But I was like, why was that his first reaction?
And I mean, Beth is too calling her. Dad's not, you know, hasn't talked to me. I don't know what's going on. He's not, you know, responding to my calls. He shouldn't be there, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, okay, well, she must be more connected maybe than Haley is. Just for the simple fact that Haley and her dad had this nonverbal falling out after the divorce, it seems like. So I don't know. I feel like, you know, I don't know. Yeah. It's one of those things, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, really the only last Dave note that I haven't already mentioned going through other stuff was just, that badassery that he did pass on to her. Because he straight up sawed into an alligator's head with a shovel and... Damn.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He was ferocious, too.
That was nice.
They were both super ferocious. Although I still question him sending her over to get the boat. You can get there, you can do it. And I'm thinking, are you crazy?
Yeah, I know. He's like holding the dog, watching her swim off. Like, well, hope she doesn't die. Like, because then I'm screwed.
Yeah, well, you would have been because she was the one who really knew what to do for the most part.
Yeah, you can outswim them. Yeah, right.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was a bit much.
Yeah. But all right, but if you don't have any other character notes about Haley and Dave, then I guess we should talk about a little more in depth these wonderful, terrifying alligators that we got this movie.
Love the alligators. I love the monsters in a movie more than the characters usually. Although Haley, I really like, she's someone that stood out to me and will stand out to me, I think, even going forward when we talk about other movies. We learned right from the beginning that they came in from the overflow drain pipe. I loved the point of view shots they gave us from the alligator's point of view at different times. Like, you could see that.
It reminded me a lot of the opening of Jaws. with
Yeah.
a lot more fire hydrants and cars, but
Yeah.
like more of an
Yeah.
urban-ish, even though they were in a pretty like kind of rural area for the most part, but a little bit more, yeah. But I immediately thought of the opening of Jaws, and I was like, ooh, this is cool.
Yeah, I loved it. I love those point of view shots. I love the beware of alligator signs that were under 6 feet. I mean, it was just, I'm like, okay, this is just a riot. I liked how Dave was explaining that, you know, they gather in the floodwaters because it's easier to hunt. And then they are talking about, well, we can't be splashing. We don't want them to hear us or sense our movement. And then he sends Haley for the boat, which I thought was completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
But they talk too about the levees breaking in the storm and how things are going to change when that happens. And then we see, you know, she does get the boat finally, and then they drive the boat right into the house. And we continue on with that. One of the coolest things, I think, was the alligator spinning her underwater. Like that.
Yeah. Those death rolls.
That was incredible. The death roll.
That is a small little detail
Unbelievable.
that I thought was really cool. Because that's a very alligator thing. Is they grab their prey and then they spin. They roll like that. That's what they call a death roll. And it's literally what it is it's either because they're kind of like twisting whatever that they've bit onto, so like rip things apart. But it's also, even if they're not, you know, ripping things apart, it's a way of keeping their prey underwater to drown it, so it stops fighting back. That's what they do.
I believe it.
And so there was a really brutal moment with a death roll that I noticed. It was a very small detail, but Pete, the other police officer with Wayne, when he gets swarmed outside by the swing set, and like 4 or 5 of them grab him and like pull him apart from different areas.
Oh,
there's one that bites onto his head and then death rolls and just pops his head off. And
right off.
I was like, oh my God.
Like a peg.
It's like, that was
oh my gosh.
brutal.
Oh gosh. I liked that though. Yep. I thought not Pete getting his head ripped off, but I liked the alligator spinning thing because I thought it was true to nature that that's something that they would do.
For sure.
I did learn that they did use a few old-fashioned props, but mostly the alligators were CGI.
Yeah. And I have in here, I was like, CGI was mostly decent.
Yes.
It had its moments that were a little rough, but it was passable.
Yeah.
I can be a CGI snob, and I was like, yeah, it wasn't great, like amazing, but they did okay.
Yeah. As long as the alligators were like in the water swimming, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
There were a few close-ups that I thought were decent. There were moments where, and the spiders, like I really wasn't into the spiders.
No,
like
it looked more like a projection onto her face versus like,
Yeah, I didn't buy that, so I wasn't down with that.
Yeah,
but there also was this little music, like not reminded me of Jaws, not because of how it sounded, but it seemed like every time there was an alligator around, there was this particular sound that was made, music-wise. And I appreciated that. Because it did remind me of Jaws in a way.
Cool.
The use of music. It wasn't John Williams, but you know, it was okay.
I did notice, because, you know, you see like that first alligator that she sees, it falls through the stairs and like takes him out. And so I realize that was kind of an early foreshadowing of the fact that there are 2 of them down there, if you put the stuff together. Because he says there's one down here and it attacked me. And then that one comes falling through, so obviously that's not the one that attacked him.
No.
And a lot you don't really put that through, but you see a glimpse of it before it's even in the basement. It's a quick little thing where when she's down there looking for her dad, and you see this movement behind her when it's like really blurry and kind of out of focus. And so I watched it a couple of times, and you see like the back end, like the tail of the alligator on the outside of the basement. Like, you know, because there's like those weird little but like these like almost club shaped like holes in the wall. They're like these little windows to the outside of the basement.
Yes.
You can see it walking. So it was like in the grass, like outside of the basement, outside of the house. And you see it walk past to where it would have gone around the house from that direction, which was headed towards the garage. So it like walked through the garage and then fell into the garage, like, into the basement from there.
It was just on a little stroll, and it heard some food and thought it would go take a look.
Definitely. Call it the basement, but it's really a crawl space in the house, which is... Yeah. At that moment, I was like, oh, that's why they called this crawl, aside from the alligators, is because they spend most of the movie in a crawl space of the house. Yeah. Which, in the crawl.
Really icky down there.
Yeah.
I'm glad I have a real basement in my house, not an icky crawl space.
Yeah, it's funny. I made a little joke in my notes because I was just like, ooh, a little bit of a gator tail action in the background there. And then I was like, and not the tasty kind. I was like, well, actually it is technically, but it's still attached to a living alligator. But it
is. Yes, no.
Because I've had my share of alligator, and most of it's kind of like a lobster in a way. You get a lot of the meat from the tail.
Okay. Doesn't make me want to go have any quicker.
But yeah. And then we get the sound effects from the alligators. I mean, obviously it's easy to pull a lot of like alligator sounds. They use a lot of pretty natural sounds. But those low guttural alligator growls, I love that sound. I wouldn't love it so much if I was in this scenario, but I've heard that sound in person a lot, and it's really cool. Just because I live in the South. There's alligators. That's a thing.
Oh my goodness.
And also like alligator farms, like when she drives past that sign on her way down there that's like advertising this big alligator farm. Yeah. Here in the South, that's totally a thing. They're everywhere. Like, oh boy. And it's pretty cool. I've gone to one. I will have to show you some pictures that I took of me and Riley at an alligator farm a couple years ago.
Ooh, I want to see that.
There's some big ones. They're huge.
I bet it's cool. I want to see that.
And so going to those things and like kind of, and then even like, in certain places, I've heard that sound and it's really cool. Like just like vibrating the water when they do it. And alligators are awesome. Oh my goodness. I really like them and appreciate them. I don't want to be in the water with one.
No.
But I really like them and appreciate them. They're like living freaking dinosaurs. This is a dinosaur movie, right?
And you know what I think about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Uh-huh. So yeah, we talked a little bit about like Pete and then even Wayne, R.I.P. Wayne, Beth's old boyfriend that she doesn't like to mention was ever a boyfriend.
Yes. They were doing something that was alluded to, but yeah. Because I got caught doing something by Dave, doing something that was alluded to. Yeah. And Haley saw them do it. So I'm not sure what it was.
But I get the picture.
Yeah. Something was happening.
Of course,
exploration
it's unfortunate that he got grabbed and pulled down into the basement like that. And that was pretty brutal as well, them taking him out. It's the same thing where it just like grabbed onto his head and then that was it.
When you have jaws like that, I mean, you're screwed. Mm-hmm. You really are screwed at that point.
Yeah. And then the scene with the gas station looters across the street. Oh, I was like, the only reason that scene was in the movie was just so they can up the body count a little bit. But you know what? Yes. I'm all for it because it was fun. Brutal, but fun.
Yes. And you know what's cool about that? I did a little research into that. And the 3 characters were named Marv, Stan, and Lee.
There it is. There it is.
You know where I'm going? You know where I'm going?
I love that. I didn't even put that together. I love that so much.
So yeah, Sam Raimi put that in as a nod to Stan Lee. And Sam Raimi, of course, directed 3 Spider-Man
Yeah, he did
films.
this. He did kind of the original, not original, but mostly widely known for like modern day audiences. The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. So yeah.
That had one of the coolest things in it, too, was Stan, the youngest one that was left standing. He turned around and saw the alligator in the reflection from, the cameras that they put in stores. They always have that silver mirror thing out there, too. He saw the reflection in that, and he was gone.
Yeah.
I found that very effective.
Yeah, it was cool. Man, Stan Lee. I could go on a whole... Just random tangent that I'm going to try to make super quick, just because like it's really like I'm smiling like after you mentioned that I didn't put it together because I'm a huge Marvel fan and huge to where like the point because like after Stan Lee passed away, I remember me and our good friend Steve, who will probably be having a voicemail left in for this episode later on.
Yes, we will.
You know, me and him went to like a Marvel exhibit in Philadelphia together at the museum there at the Franklin Institute. And they
did show me photos from that.
And they had like actual like props and costumes and everything like from the Marvel movies and everything. But like the very opening to that exhibit before you even walked in and got to see any of the props and costumes and stuff was they just had this big like memorial kind of thing to Stan Lee and all these TV screens on it, and they were just playing all of the cameos he had done in all of the movies on loops.
Oh,
I legit cried. I teared up.
I bet you did.
Man, it was something special.
Oh, goodness. Wow.
So, yeah, it was cool.
That is really cool. Yeah. You had told me about that, and you showed me some photos, so I've seen that. Looked really fun.
Definitely. But yeah, back to Crawl. What else do I have? The only other note I have on the alligators is just aww. Even though they're the killer creatures of the movie, we get to see the little baby one coming out of the egg, and I love baby alligators. They're so cute.
They're so cute. Everyone wants one until they grow up.
I haven't got to hold one, but I know people who have, and I would love to hold a baby alligator.
Oh.
I'll have to add that to a list of things too. I'm sure I could find a way. You got to go to that alligator farm nearby, because there's one like 30, 40 minutes from here. You just got to go at the right time of the year. I bet I can make that happen.
Yeah. Just call them up and ask them, what time of the year do you have babies? It's like I want to come to the goat farm or or see the puppies, and I want to pet babies.
Yes.
And I just want to pet and pick up the baby alligators. I'm sure they would welcome you to come and do that.
Yeah. Which, random notes I have, because again, I mentioned the alligator farm things because that's definitely a thing. Because even a few years ago, we had a big hurricane come through the area that overflowed an alligator farm in Beaumont, which is not super far from me. And I have a friend who lives there. And like they were prepared for that, to where most of the alligators they were able to secure and like make sure their bigger ones and stuff are. But like, yeah, those hurricane floods, I mean, even like all the fencing and stuff they have, I mean, it just raises the water up over any of those fences.
Yeah.
And alligators can just get out and get loose. So it's like, and a lot of these alligator farms have, you know, some of them, the bigger ones, have a couple thousand, 2,000 alligators.
Oh my God.
And so just to think some like little alligator farm in a city or in a town is now overflowed and you have 2,000 alligators just loose. Like, it's a creepy thing to think about.
That is not something I would not sleep at night knowing that they were out crawling around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't give me the warm fuzzies.
Yeah, so looking at like a lot of the little things, because I've driven through Florida and Louisiana around a hurricane, so I've seen the waters that are up and like covering cars and houses and stuff, and it's quite the sight to behold. It really is. Like it's wild. But yeah, that's really all the notes that I had.
Yeah, and we've talked about pretty much everything that I had in my notes as well.
Cool. All right, then. Then I guess it is time for what? Production notes and stuff.
Production notes.
So what do you got for us?
Okay, so here are a few connections and other tidbits that I was able to find. So the two leads, Kaya Scodelario and Barry Pepper, also starred together in two of the Maze Runner movies, The Scorch Trials and The Death Cure, which I have not seen The Death Cure, but I've seen the first two in the series. So I'm a little behind. This was the first horror movie produced by Sam Raimi in many years without his producing partner, Rob Taper. They did a lot of movies together, but this is the first one he did without him. Mm-hmm. There were no press screenings for the film at all. One thing that I found particularly interesting, there was a lengthy debate within the creative team about whether Sugar should live or die. Should she sacrifice herself? Should she have a tail bit off? Those types of things. But they also in the end, decided to allow her to live. And they liked the idea of having the audience not know throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
So it created this tension, because I'm one of those people that's like, the dog better make it or I'm going to be pissed.
Yep.
And so
there's a lot of people like that. To
Yeah.
the fact that there's like a website that's like, does the dog die? And you can just
Yes.
put in any movie and make sure that the dog lives in the movie.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate that so much. So basements are very rare in Florida because most of the state is at or below sea level. And in this case, we determined that this was a crawl space and not necessarily a basement.
Mm-hmm.
While Haley was driving to her dad's, the camera shows a shark with a victim in its mouth, and that is a nod to Jaws, which is cool. Quentin Tarantino selected Crawl as his favorite film of 2019, which I think is a great stamp of approval.
Yeah.
I was very surprised. I actually had to go and look at multiple sources to determine if that was actually correct, and it is.
Cool.
The ending credit music of See You Later, Alligator
Bill Haley
made me
comments.
laugh. It made me laugh. I forgot that that's what they used.
Yeah.
And then the final thing that I have to share is the action scenes. They draw somewhat from Jurassic Park. The alligators have vision based on movement, which is like a T-Rex, which was covered a bit while they were in the basement and they had to stay still. The alligators were shown to hunt in threes, with one distracting from the front and the other two swooping in from the sides, just like a velociraptor.
Yeah.
And the main action sequence takes place during what? A hurricane, which is also...
That's Jurassic Park. Yeah. This was a dinosaur movie.
Yes. It was.
All right.
And those are all the notes I have for production notes.
All right. Well, then we get to quotes.
Yes.
And
I have a couple.
Sweet. I only have two, and one of mine you also have.
Well, then you can do it.
I'll go first, which is an unusual thing, but
it is.
That way I can cover mine, and then, yeah.
I like that.
But yeah, because I only have two. Just, again, I like kind of little quippy things, and so, of course, I was like, they're both conversations between Haley and Dave, but, well, duh, because they're the only people in this movie, really. But yeah, no, the first one is when she's going out to get her phone, and she says, "Dad, keep talking to me." And he goes, "Well, how's your split in the 100 feet?" She goes, "Really?" He goes, "You asked me to talk, and we already talked about the weather." Which I thought was great.
That is great.
And then the other one that I just thought was kind of funny is, as he's telling her kind of how to find the other entrance back into the house. He says, crawl along the foundation until you reach the wet wall. She goes, "They're all wet, Dad." Which was also really fun.
I loved that one too. That is the one that I had on my list too.
Yes.
I thought that was kind of funny. Oh, that was a cool father-daughter moment.
Yeah.
So I have three left. The first one is when they're trying to figure out how they're going to get out of the basement. Dave has a couple of quotes, and one of them is, "We may be stubborn, but we do not give up," which I thought was good. And then a little bit later, he says, "We are going to beat these pea-brained lizard shits," which I found kind of humorous. And then Haley had a great quote when she is going to get the boat, and she gets it. She gets in the boat and is driving it back, and she says, "Apex predator all day." And I loved that. I'm like, that is why you're a badass, Haley. Loved it.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, then we get to go to our rankings. And like true form, I'm still going to let you go first on this one.
You always do. Always. I expect it now.
As you should.
Yes. Okay, so I really liked this movie a lot. As we've talked about, we give things numbers and they don't really matter.
Yeah.
But they do. There were some things that let's just say there were a few things in this movie that were suspension of disbelief. But I still really liked it. There's the story itself, and especially Haley and Dave, who I thought were two likable characters. which I don't often find. I looked for the Dennis Nedry in this film, and I couldn't find one.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Maybe the girl characters. Out of the three looters. Maybe.
Yeah,
she said, "There's nobody over there. Just get out of here and let's go."
Yeah. Exactly. She's
Maybe
kind of a Nedry. Yeah, it could be her. So I'm going to give it a solid 8.
All right. Cool. Where I'm at is I wanted to do that same thing, but then I couldn't let myself quite give it a B rating, an 8 within there. As much as I do love it, I was like, there's still so many glaring, like the CGI was rough in a couple spots and a lot of suspension of disbelief things where I was like, man, that's just not. So I couldn't quite let myself get past it on the 8, but I wanted to get as close as I could. So we're right next to each other because I landed on a 7.9. So I went ahead and stretched that 7 as far as I could.
Excellent. I like that. I'll take it. That's awesome. I'm glad. It was a fun movie.
Yeah.
In a very depressing and sad way, with lots of action.
Yeah. Oh, it was very brutal, but brutal can be fun, especially if you like these kind of movies.
Which we do. That's why we cover them.
Yes. All right. It's time to get into some feedback for this week, and we have our loyal couple, loyal few that I enjoy always hearing back from, and so let's get into it. Hopefully we'll hear from some more people soon. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Yes,
putting that out in the universe there. But we love what we get, and just that you guys are listening is always awesome anyway. So just throwing it out there.
We really appreciate it, guys, so please keep it up.
Mm-hmm. And so the first one comes from Tony on Twitter. Always can count on her over there, and I love it.
Absolutely.
And it's short, succinct, to the point, but I love it. She says, a fun popcorn movie, just enjoyed. That's good.
Yes. Totally agree, Tony. It was such a great movie. It was so much better than I thought it was going to be. It was just a deeper story, and it was just a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
We also have feedback from our good friend Steve, and I think he watched this movie, Pake.
I think he did, so we should actually get some crawl feedback from.
Yeah, and not Crawl Space or Another Crawl or Krull, which is another old movie from the 80s. I think it was the 80s. So let's listen to what Steve had to say about Krull.
Hey, Pake and Daphne, it's Steve, and I can't believe you're doing another classic 80s movie, 1983's Krull. Crazy science fiction movie. I'm just starting it now. No, not really. I'm not going to watch Krull. I'm going to watch Krull. Why wouldn't you just leave the dog? I guess you're not supposed to leave a dog in the car, even when it's a hurricane. Nothing bad better happen to this dog. Definitely not Jaws. They didn't waste any time. 20 minutes in, gator. Oh, there's more than one. These guys are literally stealing ATM machines? Huh. They got nothing to worry about now, right? These gators are nice and fed. They just ate 3 people. So, why would they bother with Haley and her dad? These gators are getting everybody except the main characters. I guess that's what they call plot armor. She's got busted knuckles. Did I miss something where she punched the gator? Was that the plan? I didn't hear that part of it. He's banging on the pipes to distract them so she can swim to the stairs, and then he drops the house on one of them, and he's hitting it with a brick, and then he kills it with the shovel. Nice. Are those eggshells? Is there like baby gators around here somewhere? Did you kill it, or did you maybe just piss it off? Haley, with the gun, I mean. Okay, is one of them going to trip over the fire hydrant? Is that why they showed us the fire hydrant earlier? Like Chekhov's fire hydrant? Did the gator, eat half the boat? Man, they should have had that boat from San Andreas. I really wanted one of them to say, "We're back in the house again." Or, "Oh, we're back in the house again." Where's the dog? There he is. Okay, cool. Well, that was pretty good. That last, 10 minutes, wow, was really tense. So, okay, sorry this went 2 minutes.
Sounds like you liked it.
Yay, we got one for Steve.
Yeah, I'm always happy when Steve is happy.
Yes.
because I know our movies don't always fit in with what he likes for movies. I don't think Steve's a really big horror fan, so I'm glad that we picked this one because I think it definitely is a movie that he could get into more, and it sounded like it based on his voicemail.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve and Tony. And always appreciate all the feedback we get, any and all. All right. What else is going on out there in our little podcast universe, podcast world? Always like to shout out what's going on, so make sure you check out some other stuff going on. Again, Strange Indeed, I'll always plug. Still currently working on CBS All Access's The Stand. Episode 7 is out. Rima and Ben covering that. And then I will be jumping back on for episode 8 next week. So I'm excited for that. That's going to be wild. The show's been a lot of fun. So I know it's a little like divisive for some people, but I've been really enjoying it.
And I've seen episode 8, and I know you haven't. But when you do, I can't wait to hear what you, Rima, and Ben have to say about it, because I have lots of thoughts.
Nice. And speaking of other like newer, currently running shows that I am absolutely loving, make sure you also check out Steve if you'd like to hear more of his voice, and our good friend Mark over on Panels to Pixels. They are actually covering 2 shows right now. They're doing both, a week. They are covering Snowpiercer Season 2 on TNT, which I have not watched episode 2 yet, but episode 1 was incredibly good, and I need to get on episode 2 soon. So they'll be covering that, and they're also covering WandaVision on Disney Plus. And holy crap, if you are a Marvel fan and you are not watching WandaVision, fix that atrocity right now. It is so good.
I second that.
So good.
It's so good. So good.
So many fun surprises, so many fun like twists and storyline things, and it's really building up the MCU. Man, I might have to see if I can jump on that podcast and nerd out about this show with them at some point. I'm throwing my hat in the ring on that if they want to get back to me on that, because oh man,
I feel like you have to. Hey Mark, if you're listening to this one, Pate wants to come on and talk about WandaVision.
Yeah, especially maybe this week. I don't know if it's not too late. I don't know to throw that one for episode 5, because that one, it's some crazy stuff going on with that, and had a little fun little moment. My buddy Julian, known him from a panel I did with him a while back for a show he was on, and so that's a little spoiler, I guess, in a way that if you know who I'm talking about, shows up in the episode 5. Immediately had to like message him, and his mom was like, "Holy crap, you're in the MCU! This is cool." Had a little conversation with him. It was awesome. But yeah, so I've been kind of nerding out about that today. It's really fun. But yeah, so definitely check out WandaVision and check out Panels to Pixels podcast to hear their coverage of that and Snowpiercer. And then Mark's other podcast as well, Adrenaline Cinema, where they cover all kind of action movies and classic movies that get you your adrenaline pumping, as he likes to say. And the most recent thing on there, they've got him, Wendy, and Kelly are tackling the movie Aliens. So,
yes. I'm looking forward to listening to that one. I think this was Kelly's first podcast that she has ever guested on. So I'm excited for her to jump into the podcast world. Mm-hmm. And I can't wait to listen to what they had to say about aliens.
Yes. Daphne, do you have a little shout out to make this week as well? Maybe not to a podcast, but...
I do. It's not a podcast, but my good friends, Mark and Sue, over at this little store called Collectiques. It's in Rochester, New Hampshire. It's a place that I go to get all of my little figures. I have Velociraptors on my desk right now. I've got some pop figures, including this one of my least favorite character from Jurassic Park, Dennis Nedry, that I keep here. So Mark and Sue have always hooked me up with the best stuff. I really appreciate them letting me know when they have something new that they think I might be interested in. The cool thing that they did this week is they shared the Run for Your Lives podcast on their Facebook feed, and I really appreciate that. So if you are in the market for pop figures or action figures of just about any kind, or want to go and visit their amazing Lego room, which it's hard to get out of after you enter because you just want to play all day. Anyway, they are in Rochester, New Hampshire, and they are on Facebook. And they have a website, so check it out.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark and Sue with Collectees. And then, speaking of podcasts from earlier, those kind of shout outs, Daphne, why don't you tell everybody what's going on next week here on the Run for Your Lives podcast?
Well, next week, which is our 25th episode milestone, we are catching up with our good friend Earl Bassett by taking a look at the first sequel that we've ever looked at. It was directed by S.S. Wilson and released direct-to-video on April 9th, 1996. The film, of course, is Tremors 2, and it follows Earl's adventures in Mexico as he deals with another subterranean infestation. Graboids, a new sidekick, and more Burt Gummer. What could be better? What more could you want?
Yes, definitely. Please give us some thoughts and stuff on that, and tune in and listen, because Tremors, if you listen to our first episode of this podcast, you know how much of a Tremors fanboy I am. And so it's awesome to revisit that world and jump back into all the craziness that it is. And yeah, it's a fun one for sure.
It was so much fun. Go back and give our first episode a listen to prepare you for Tremors 2.
Yeah. So if you would like to give us some feedback, thoughts, or anything else on Tremors 2, the first Tremors, Crawl, or anything else that we've covered or that you want us to cover, you can always hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us and send us voicemails like Steve over at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at RFYL Podcast and Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please share the love, tell your friends, post about it, retweet us, share us on Facebook, whatever you can do. Just get us out there and share the love. We always appreciate that. Or you can always send anybody to our website, which is runforyourlivespodcast.com. And there you can get links to all of our social media, all of the podcast players. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Stitcher, Pandora, YouTube, etc., etc., etc.
With that, we've reached the end of our episode.
Yes.
Another great episode of Run For Your Lives.
Lots of fun.
I am Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run or swim through alligators who have invaded your home, you'd better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.